Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
We have in the market today about 38 million active registrants. We talk about our engagement. We get open and click-through rates that are probably 10 times the average. So our audience is tremendously engaged with us.
At a time when targeted advertising is challenged by a ton of noise and privacy is a deep concern, connecting to an audience is an art form.
That's where we decided to kind of focus most intensely on creating identity and data-led advertising solutions that we thought would be valuable in the market.
Being a public company can be hard. Small missteps can have outsized consequences. I'm Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. And over the last 25 years, we've helped thousands of companies understand and navigate the stock market and the media. We'll demystify these and other increasingly complex stakeholder groups so you can focus on what you do best, building your company and unlocking your true potential. This is Welcome to the Arena from ICR. Longevity in any business is something to celebrate, but when a media company can successfully evolve through several decades of seismic shifts, it's also a huge lesson in the art of pivoting. Today's guest has navigated through 41 years of change, and his company has come through stronger than ever. We're sitting down with Andy Goldberg, CEO of PCH Media. Andy is leading PCH's multi-year transformation as the company continues to pivot from direct-to-consumer retail towards an identity and data-driven advertising business. This includes a concerted effort to attract and hire top media talent to align with the company's new focus. The company is looking to drive incremental shareholder value based on PCH's unique value exchange and unparalleled ability to generate peer audience authentication, permission-first party data, and tremendous user engagement. Andy has led the company through several successful evolutions via acquisitions in the online search, casual games, and mobile advertising markets. In addition to being CEO, he's also chairman of the board of directors and a past member of the board of directors and executive committee of the Direct Marketing Association. Recognized for excellence in the industry, Andy has been honored with the Silver Apple Award from the Direct Marketing Club of New York. He earned his BS in marketing from the Wharton School at UPenn. Let's enter the arena with Andy Goldberg.
Publishers Clearing has actually been around for 71 years, started by the Mertz family in 1953. The original concept for the business was novel. It was the idea of creating a direct mail effort and bringing magazine subscription offers together in one place, with PCH taking all of the marketing and the credit risk. And it was a really novel idea, and it worked pretty much right out of the gate. And PCH quickly became the largest provider of magazine subscriptions to the publishing industry. The sweepstakes came along in 1967. It actually wasn't an original idea here at PCH, but the brand quickly became most associated with the idea of big money sweepstakes. And then later on, we did create this concept of the prize patrol with the people who would go out with with the flowers and the balloons and the champagne and surprise people at their doors. Yeah, so that's funny. So Ed actually never worked for PCH. We had a competitor for many years called American Family Publishers.
Yeah.
And Ed was their spokesperson, but everybody in America confused the two of us, and it was actually good for business because it kind of lifted both.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So if you ask most people in across America, PCH, they will say how's Ed McMahon? And everybody in America is sure that Ed McMahon worked for PCH, but actually he never did.
That's so cool. And then, so how did you get involved? How did the opportunity to get involved with the company come to you? And where was it when you joined versus what you do today?
Yeah, the profile of the business was very different then than it is today. I've actually been here for 41 years.
Oh my gosh.
Which is kind of crazy. When I came, it was strictly magazine subscriptions. I was hired initially, actually, to run an ancillary business, which was distributing coupons from Procter & Gamble. So the PCH mailings delivered P&G's two biggest promotional events of the year. And then after a couple of years of that, we had a program selling magazines in the college market. And then a couple of years after that, the decision was made to diversify beyond magazines into a broad range of merchandise. And so I worked over a period of years to build up the merchandise business, which became much bigger than the magazine business, was a good thing. After that, we decided around 2000 to bring the brand online. And so we were leveraging our big TV-supported events to drive people online. And we quickly developed an enormous opt-in email file that we were initially monetizing with basically performance lead generation traffic that we were sending out to third-party partners. I would say the big aha moment for me that kind of changed the trajectory of our digital business, since I was running the merchandise business at the time, I would go to the largest trade shows. And the coolest of all the trade shows was always the music industry. And one night they introduced me to Trisha Yearwood, who was a big star in her own right, even before she married Garth. And so they said, Trisha, this is Andy from PCH. And Trisha said, say no more. I know all about Publishers Clearinghouse because in my house growing up in Georgia, I think it was, she said there was PCH night, one night between Christmas and New Year's when your mailing would come in and we would lay it out on the table and we would decide, what color Jaguar we wanted to win and maybe what magazine or we wanted to buy. And so it dawned on me that we were really so much more than a one-dimensional direct marketer. We were really providing a sort of this unique form of entertainment to a big chunk of middle America. And then when I came back from there, I said, we really need to broaden the definition of what we're doing here. And so we developed a network of free-to-play, chance-to-win entertainment properties. So in addition to then having this broad digital experience, we also expanded from just the big super prizes to lots of ways you could play for a chance to win. So we have a lotto engine, we have instant win scratch cards, we have weekly grand prizes, and we also created a token reward economy. In our case, you get rewarded with tokens for everything you do at PCH online, and then you can go into our reward center and decide what kind of prize you actually want to win, which provides a tremendous amount of valuable first-party data for us.
Yeah. And then when you add all of this up, what are kind of the numbers on, you always talk about like authenticated and engaged users. How do you characterize your database?
Sure. We have in the market today about 38 million the last 5-year active registrants. And the interesting thing here is that all of our registrants are fully authenticated, fully identified. You have to give us a full postal registration.
So they're like real people.
Yeah, exactly. So they're real people, and nobody lies about giving their full registration data because they want to make sure the prize patrol, if they win, shows up at my house, not at your house. So that even starting with the initial registration data, it's extremely accurate and authentic. We have a ton of permissioned zero and first-party data that's been shared with us, and we have this off-the-charts engagement that's driven by the free-to-play entertainment that we have. And so that's where we decided to kind of focus most intensely on creating identity and data-led advertising solutions that we thought would be valuable in the market.
So I read that PCH has mapped out 4,000 privacy-first targeting attributes for each user, let's say, and maybe 1,000 unique audience segments. My question is, what is that? Obviously, I know it is very valuable to marketers. Once they kind of see what you have, how do you work together?
So yeah, we have the 38 million users, and we have a tremendous amount of zero and first party data on each of those. So we were able to create, as you said, 4,000 different segments with our data combined with some third party data to sort of expand the definition. So the way we think about it, we've got all these data signals. We have the registration data, we have 750,000 searches a day on our search properties. So that search query data also goes into the data engine. So that's very valuable data. So we take all that data and we create data signals on each of those segments. So we take those segments and we say, okay, let's say given a range of 0 to 10, what is the amount of interest that you have in a particular segment? And we've productized that audience solution and we've made those segments available in the ad tech market. So we call it our audience solution in that particular case. We have a tremendous number of brands who are testing our audience's data to see how it enhances all of their advertising. We have one client, for example, they're a very large Midwestern-based quick-serve restaurant chain, and they are using a variety of what we call custom segments. So from all of those segments that are available, we're working directly with them and their agency to create custom segments, which enhance all of their ad spend across everything they're spending. So it enables them to refine the targeting for their target audience, which ultimately improves their return on their ad spend. And they're a great client because every month we sit down with them and we look at what segments are working, what isn't working. We look at other segments we can test. And so we're refining every month. And so they're coming back on a recurring basis every month. And they're very happy with our data and what it's doing to improve the effectiveness of their advertising.
So one thing a partner of yours can do, a client of yours, they can work with you to do like a co-branded sweepstakes. And my guess is with all the different ways you can reach your people, you could really get creative into how you work with someone to kind of create a totally unique approach to those folks that are in the PCH system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we know sweepstakes pretty well. Sweepstakes administration in and of itself is quite challenging. You have to be very careful about the way you handle it. So we have, for a number of years, been doing what we call co-branded sweepstakes. We've actually productized the solution and we call it Identify. And it's a way for a brand to be able to build their own first-party database. Because the reality is that if you want to build your own first-party database, you need to have some kind of a value exchange, right? You got to be able to offer somebody something in return for giving you their name and their address and other attributes about what they're interested in. And typically, it's just a percentage off your first purchase if you're a retailer, or free stuff, or a chance to win something. So this is a really effective way to help a brand build their first-party database. And we've done this with a number of brands. So if a brand doesn't have their own first-party database, the first step would be to build what we call a seed segment, at least a large enough segment that you can use to inform all of your advertising everywhere, and particularly on the walled gardens, where if you upload your data into the walled gardens, it will improve the effectiveness of your advertising. And we also use the co-branded sweepstakes to drive performance. So we've done a lot of work with mobile app developers, for example, to drive installs.
At the end of the day, for marketers, it all comes down to the numbers. And understanding click-through rates and how PCH stacks up against the likes of Facebook and other social media is really when the company's reach becomes super impressive. I asked Andy to take me through what the hard numbers are really saying about PCH's engagement.
When we talk about our engagement, it's most noticeable, for example, in our email efforts. We're really good at email marketing. It's probably an outgrowth of our culture that came from direct mail. We get open and click-through rates that are probably 10 times the average email. So our audience is tremendously engaged with us based on, the way that they open and click and convert on our emails. The amount of time spent. So for example, an average session is at least 20 minutes. So people are spending a lot of time with PCH every day. If you look in our organic posts on Facebook and Instagram, you can see the tremendous number of comments that we get every day, just showing the very high level of engagement. So for example, we had a terrific winner of a car yesterday in Missouri. And I think within like 2 hours or an hour maybe of the post going up, showing the winning moment, we had over 1,100 comments. So people are very engaged with the PCH brand.
Yeah. Switching gears to some of the shifts in the industry, just at a basic level for people who don't know, What is first party versus third party data? That's kind of, you have the first party. What is third party?
Sure. At PCH, we actually think it's important to delineate between not just first party and third party, but zero first party and third party.
Oh, right. Okay.
So zero party data, for example, in our case, is data that's directly permissioned from consumers. So when we ask people questions, that would represent zero party data. First party data is in our case would be, for example, when they go into the reward center and they decide what prize they want to win. That is first party data. It's an action that's taken directly with us. Third party data is typically, it doesn't have quite as direct a relationship between the consumer and the owner of the data. So there are a lot of providers of third-party data. They grab the data from a lot of different places. And in reality, a lot of the time, it's not actual data. It's modeled data based on lookalike modeling. Third-party data, while it may be more extensive in terms of the number of individuals that it covers, it's typically a lot less accurate than the zero and first-party data that I was just describing. Cookies, which have been so in the news recently, are a form of third-party data. It's a piece of code that tracks users' activity across the desktop and mobile web, but there again, it's not 100% accurate. So big difference between the quality of zero and first-party data and third-party data. And then, of course, there's the issue of privacy and the fact that there is tremendous pressure on the industry from consumers and regulators to move away from third-party data altogether.
I'm glad you brought that up. I know Google, they put out some news. Their latest decision was to back out of depreciating third-party cookies. And how are the changes at Google likely to impact business? I think they came out and it was kind of favorable to marketers right now, but that may not last forever. What's your take on that?
It's interesting. It was a little bit of a surprise in terms of the shift in their direction. But after about 10 minutes, I think we realized what most of the industry has recognized, which is this is essentially just a different means to the same end. I think this comes across as a way, on Google's part, as a way more industry and user-friendly approach to essentially eliminating cookies as a basis for tracking online activity. I think it's going to result in the same kind of massive signal loss, which will make it really tough for advertisers to be able to market efficiently, which is why everybody's got to be looking at first-party data and recognize that third-party cookies anyway are going away.
Yeah, Andy, and so you used a term there that I think is important to define, signal loss. What is signal loss?
So I would think of signal loss as the indicators that can be used in an effort to effectively reach your target prospect and customer audience. So cookies being the most significant one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems to me, the shift that you're describing is either a low cookie future or no cookie future. And obviously the first party data that you have becomes more and more valuable as this trend takes hold. And correct me if I'm wrong, it all stems from the increasing desire for privacy. And what you have that no one else has is a group of people who are like totally willing to share their information because they love being a part of it.
Yeah, 100% correct, I would say. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that privacy concerns aren't going away.
Yeah. They're going to get worse, I'm sure.
They're going to get worse. It feels like it's one of the few bipartisan issues that everybody at the state and federal level can agree on.
Yep.
So one way or the other, third-party cookies are going away.
Yeah, makes sense. Switching gears a little bit, I know you have collaborations with third-party players in the marketing industry. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
So when you think about first-party data solutions or alternatives to cookies, there are the audience data solutions that people like us offer. There is the effort to build your own first-party database, and then the third opportunity are to participate in industry-wide opportunities for ID-based solutions. So in our case, for example, we work with the Trade Desk UID2 solution. We're probably one of the most significant publishers because we have such a large identified audience. We're working with Google Pair, which is Google Pair's solution, which is a clean room solution that enables a brand that has their own first-party database to be able to put it into a clean room and match it against people like PCH that have identified users in a privacy-safe way and be able to reach, again, your target audience. Amazon has a similar product called AWS Clean Room. And then, of course, all of our audience's data is accessible. It lives on LiveRamp. It's accessible in lots of places on all the major DSPs and SSPs, but it lives in LiveRamp. So yeah, we're tied to everybody key to ID-based solutions in the industry.
Yeah. And then I have to ask you, the theme of 2024 so far seems to be artificial intelligence. How does that factor into what you all do every day?
I mean, there's no question in my mind that AI is a very extremely powerful tool. And I don't think the impact on industry is being overstated. I know some people on Wall Street are now sort of saying, well, maybe there's a bubble there. I'm not sure about the valuations, but I know that it is extremely powerful. So we're utilizing it internally in our own business. For example, when I mentioned that we have 750,000 search queries a day, we're using generative AI to be able to leverage all of that unstructured data and to put it into those segments that I talked about earlier. For publishers and brands, there's an immediate challenge, I think, being posed by effective use of AI in the search. And search is a key way that brands connect with their customers. And the reality is, if you look at Google Gemini, they just released like the new phone with Gemini, doing a lot of TV advertising, or Copilot from Microsoft. It suggests that you're not going to need to actually look at a publisher's article or go directly to a company's website because you just ask a question and it gives you the answer right there. So I think that's a massive game changer in terms of dependence on traditional search. So this is all happening very quickly, but I see that as a change that's going to occur very fast and have major impact for publishers in terms of traffic and for brands in terms of their ability to use search to connect directly with consumers. So there again, I think it brings back to the need to have your own first-party database or look for first-party data solutions where you're not dependent on that means in order to connect with users.
Yeah. 100%. I guess my last question, Andy, is a pretty general one. What are you looking to accomplish over the next 5 years? What are the biggest opportunities for PCH Media? What are the big initiatives? What do you see when you look out 3 to 5 years?
I continue to believe that the direction that we've moved in terms of focusing our efforts on identity and data-led solutions is the key to the future for this company. We've moved fast to create a bunch of client-facing solutions that I think can be meaningful. Our audience's data solution, it's easily accessible. Our identify first-party database solution, plugging into all the ID-based buying solutions for our on-platform inventory. And then I didn't get a chance earlier to talk about the other area that I'm excited about for us, which is our unique ID-based approach to higher quality and more user-friendly market research. The market research industry is a very large domestic industry. I think it's over $60 billion a year, and it's predicated on a really lousy user experience.
Yeah.
If you've ever tried to take a survey, they ask you a bunch of mind-numbing questions to qualify you, and then about 80% of the time after you go through all those questions, they say, sorry, you don't qualify.
Or you quit halfway through.
Or you quit halfway through, exactly, because they're still doing like 20 to 30 minute surveys, and people are living on their phones where, the average video, if it's longer than 20 seconds, you think it's too long. So we think there's a huge opportunity to provide a better user experience based on the fact that we know who you are, so we don't have to put you through those mind-numbing questions all the time. to create shorter surveys that are more user-friendly. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about the fact that it's predicated on a better user experience. And I think that all of our core strengths in terms of, our user experience and the entertainment that we provide and the willingness of consumers to be able to share information with us on a totally permission basis presents us with a lot of opportunity going forward.
PCH Media has 38 million registered, reliable, and real people driving better ROIs for marketers. It's an incredibly powerful source in an online search environment that continues to change and where the first-party data is really key. At Welcome to the Arena from ICR, we're working really hard to bring you exciting guests and great content. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. The more the show grows, the more interesting voices we can have on the podcast, and in turn, that should demystify a lot of the stakeholders around public companies and soon-to-be public companies. Thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Andy Goldberg for joining me today. As a 41-year veteran at PCH Media, he's got an extraordinary vantage point on audience data collection, and it was fascinating to hear about all of the wins at PCH. We'd love to have Andy back on down the road. This is Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.